It's the Virgin Martyr Pablo Quinones podcast. Forget podcasts. It's called the Virgin Martyr Pablo Quinones. I'm going to read you something I wrote this week. This one is about my mother. I call it Mama Santa. My father, El Patron, can barely speak because of the tracheotomy that allows him to breathe with the assistance of a ventilator. He has one hand that still works, his left one. His right one rests up on a pillow to prevent it from swelling. He uses his left hand to indicate his needs. He'll pat his groin when he needs to be changed. But sometimes his signs don't have an obvious logic, but we've learned what they mean. When he wants his lungs suctioned off, he rubs his pointer finger on both sides of his beard. He was born a wealthy little baby. Although he lost everything in the revolution, he strove to recreate the circumstances of his birth, and in a small way he did succeed. He put himself back at the position of the... Oh Lord, I read that wrong. I want to start over. Although he lost everything in the revolution, he strove to recreate the circumstances of his birth, and in a small way he succeeded in restoring his position at the head of a bourgeois dictatorship. He spent decades marinating in power, prosperity, and privilege. He is soaked to the muscles in his perspective. He is bourgeois to the bone. He lays in bed and commands with his one working hand and a gasping voice. One day, in a long row of tedious days, he waved me over and indicated that he wanted to speak. Something like that. I leaned over and put my ear to his lips. "What?" he said. "I don't like the service here." He put his hand down and turned his eyes back to the ceiling. Even laying in his withering bed, he's looking down on the world. My mother is the saint at the center of this family, caring for her husband all the way to the end, all day and all night, for a man who in his senile state has no concern for her need to sleep. Taking care of a man who, even in his better days, was even less concerned about her need for sleep. She works despite the lack of help from her lazy, fruitless children. She doesn't complain. She cries sometimes. These are the times and the acts that are going to be written in our Bible for the next generation. She reminds me of Ursula from 100 Years of Solitude. Industrious. She's always walking around the house doing something. If she isn't changing my dad, she's unpacking boxes or sewing new curtains for the windows. We have big, expensive leather couches in the living room, and I've never seen her sit on them, not even to practice. We have a coffee table that is never used except to hold the scissors she uses to cut fabric. So why do we have all the furniture? Decoration, I guess. I've only seen her sit on wooden chairs with little cushions while she is eating or using the sewing machine. By examining the chair, you can understand one aspect of my mother's character. This thin cushion over hard wood is all you need, really. Pillows and armrests are for people who sit long. My mother has this beautiful house that she could never have imagined living in, coming from the poverty that she does. And even me, who grew up in this country, could never imagine that she would live there. But she still just acts like she's the help. She never stops. Now, it's wrong to frame that observation as a criticism. Most people would find that admirable, and honestly, so do I. It's interesting that she doesn't even sleep in the master bedroom in her own house. She sleeps in a room by the kitchen with the door open so she can hear an alarm from my dad's room in case one of his life-sustaining machines goes off in the night. Even in sleep, she's vigilant, like a character in a parable Jesus would tell. Here goes the mother to take care of the incontinent father as if he was one of the grandbabies she never received. And yet, she stayed faithful, always faithful, to God and her husband. That's nice. She's doubtless the hero of the fable. It does beg the question, though, what is her reward? Why do the most righteous suffer the most? Why do the selfless end up in service to the selfish? She might be like that woman who washed Jesus' feet. We don't know where she came from or where she went, but she got a footnote, pun intended, in the Gospels. And her fame lives on with whoever reads them. And maybe us, every generation, knowing about her and the fact that she got that one shout out from Christ will somehow continue to echo in eternity. I hope.